Part 1. The House Beyond the Fog. Northern Peru is known for its mountains, ancient ruins, and dense cloud forests. But hidden far beyond the tourist paths, there are places where people refuse to go after sunset. Places where mirrors are covered. Places where names are never spoken. Places where the legend of Bloody Mary is not a game. It is a warning. My name is Gonzales A. Everything I am about to tell you happened 3 years ago. I wish it hadn't. I wish I had never looked into that mirror. And I wish I had never said her name. Because once Bloody Mary notices you, she never looks away. The village of San Muerte sat high in the mountains of northern Peru. Only 200 people lived there. The roads were dirt. The electricity failed almost every night, and strange fog rolled through the streets after dark. The villagers hated talking about the old stories, especially the story of the abandoned monastery deep inside the cloud forest. The monastery had been empty for over a century. That's what everyone claimed. I arrived there as a documentary filmmaker. My channel focused on local legends and forgotten mysteries. I wanted something different. Something nobody had covered before. Something that would go viral. The locals didn't like my questions. Whenever I asked about the monastery, people immediately changed the subject. Old women crossed themselves. Men walked away. Children became silent. One elderly man named Hector finally agreed to speak, but only after sunset, and only inside his house, with every mirror covered. The old man stared at me with trembling eyes. "You came looking for Bloody Mary." I laughed. "The mirror ghost?" He didn't laugh back. "She isn't a ghost." A chill crawled up my spine. "What is she then?" Hector's voice became barely a whisper. "A door." The room suddenly felt colder. Outside, rain hammered the roof. "Years ago," Hector continued, "people found a black mirror hidden beneath the monastery." "A black mirror?" "Not glass." "Then what?" "Nobody knows." The old man's hands shook violently. "It reflected things that weren't there." I smiled nervously. "It sounds like a myth." Hector looked directly into my eyes. "No." The word came out sharp, almost angry. "People vanished." "How many?" 32. The room fell silent. I waited for him to smile, to admit it was an exaggeration. He never did. I couldn't sleep. The rain never stopped. Wind screamed outside my hotel window. At around 2 a.m., I noticed something strange. There was knocking. Soft. Slow. 3 knocks. Tap, tap, tap. From inside the room. Not outside. Inside. I sat upright. The room was empty. The knocking stopped. I searched everywhere. Closet, bathroom, under the bed. Nothing. I was about to lie back down when I noticed the bathroom mirror. Something had appeared on the foggy surface. 3 words, written from the inside, as if someone trapped inside the mirror had used a finger. "Come, find me." My blood turned to ice. I rushed forward. The writing vanished. Only my reflection remained. But something looked wrong. My reflection wasn't copying my movements perfectly. It seemed delayed, only by a fraction of a second. But enough to make my stomach drop. I stepped backward. The reflection smiled. I hadn't. I stumbled into the bedroom. When I looked again, everything was normal. Just a mirror. Just my reflection. Nothing else. I convinced myself I was tired, hallucinating. Stress. Nothing supernatural. Nothing dangerous. I was wrong. The next morning I met a local guide named Raul. He reluctantly agreed to take me to the monastery. The journey took 6 hours through mountains and cloud forests. The deeper we traveled, the darker everything became. Even during daylight, the trees grew twisted. The air smelled damp and rotten. Birds stopped singing. Eventually, we reached a stone path, nearly swallowed by vegetation. At the end stood the monastery. The building looked dead. Black moss covered the walls. The windows resembled empty eye sockets. Massive wooden doors hung crooked on rusted hinges. The place felt wrong, not abandoned, waiting. Raoul refused to enter. No amount of money. I laughed. You really believe the stories? The guide looked terrified. My grandfather entered. What happened? He came back. The man swallowed hard. But something else came back with him. Before I could ask more, Raoul turned and walked away, leaving me alone. I entered the monastery. Immediately the temperature dropped. Dust filled the air. Long hallways stretched into darkness. Ancient religious paintings lined the walls. Most had been destroyed. The faces scratched away. Every single one. Hours passed. I filmed everything. Nothing unusual happened. No ghosts, no voices, no monsters. I started feeling disappointed. Maybe the legend was fake after all. Then I found the basement. The staircase descended deep underground, much deeper than the monastery itself. The stone steps looked older than the building above, almost ancient. As I walked downward, I noticed strange symbols carved into the walls, symbols that repeated over and over. Circles, eyes, mirrors, faces screaming silently. At the bottom stood a rusted metal door. Someone had chained it shut decades ago. Recently. My flashlight trembled in my hand. The door slowly creaked open. Not because I touched it, because something on the other side pulled it. A freezing wind rushed out. The smell was horrible. Rot, blood, mold, something far worse. I stepped inside. My flashlight illuminated a massive underground chamber. And there, at the center of the room, stood a mirror. It was over 10 feet tall, completely black, not reflective, not glass. It looked like liquid darkness frozen into a perfect rectangle. The surface moved slightly, like black water. My heart pounded. This had to be the legendary mirror, the one Hector described, the one hidden beneath the monastery. As I filmed, the camera suddenly died. Battery empty. Impossible. It had been fully charged. Then my flashlight began flickering. The chamber grew darker. The black mirror seemed to absorb the light itself. Then I heard breathing. Behind me. Slow. Wet. Close. Very close. I spun around. Nobody was there. The chamber was empty. Yet the breathing continued. My flashlight flickered again. I saw a woman standing inside the black mirror. Not reflected. Inside. Pale skin. Long black hair. Eyes completely white. And a smile far too wide for a human face. The light returned. She was gone. I backed away. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But then I heard a voice. Soft. Female. Whispering directly into my ear. Say my name. I froze. The voice came again, closer. Say my name, Gonzalez. My blood ran cold. I had never told anyone in the village my full name. No one here should have known it. The mirror rippled. Dark waves spread across its surface, and slowly, letters began appearing, written in what looked like blood. BLOODYMARY. The chamber shook, the temperature plunged, the breathing became laughter. A horrible female laugh echoing from every direction. And then, a hand emerged from the mirror, a human hand, reaching toward me, slowly, hungrily. I turned and ran. The laughter followed me through the tunnels, up the stairs, through the monastery, into the forest. The sound chased me all the way back to the village, and when I finally reached my hotel room after midnight, I thought I was safe. Until I looked at the bathroom mirror and saw a message written in fresh blood. A message that hadn't been there before. A message that made my heart stop. It read, "You looked at me. Now I can look at you." End of part 1. Part 2. The Woman Inside the Reflection. The words on the bathroom mirror looked fresh. You looked at me, now I can look at you. The letters appeared to be written in blood, dark red, wet, dripping slowly down the glass. My entire body froze. For several seconds I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. I simply stared. Then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. A violent wind slammed against the hotel windows. Outside, thunder exploded across the mountains. I fumbled for my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. The mirror was empty. The message had vanished. Only my terrified reflection remained. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, fear, nothing more. But deep inside, I knew that was a lie. Something had followed me from the monastery. Something ancient. Something hungry. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I dreamed of the black mirror. In the dream, I stood inside the underground chamber. The mirror stretched higher than before, taller than the walls, taller than the monastery itself. Its black surface rippled like water. And on the other side stood thousands of pale faces, all staring directly at me, waiting, watching, smiling. At exactly 3:03 a.m., I woke suddenly. The room was silent, too silent. Even the wind had stopped. Then I heard it, a faint scratching noise, scratch, 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 coming from the bathroom. My flashlight trembled as I approached. The scratching grew louder, slow, patient, like fingernails dragging across glass. I pushed open the bathroom door. The sound stopped instantly. The mirror stood perfectly still. Nothing unusual, nothing visible. Yet something felt horribly wrong. Then my flashlight beam moved slightly, and I saw it, a handprint on the inside of the mirror, not outside, inside, as if someone trapped beyond the glass had pressed their hand against it. My stomach twisted. The handprint slowly slid downward, leaving a bloody trail behind. I ran from the bathroom. I didn't care how ridiculous it sounded. At sunrise, I packed my equipment and headed straight to Hector's house. The old man opened the door. One look at my face was enough. You saw her. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. I nodded. Hector closed the door behind me. Every mirror in his home remained covered. Even small reflective surfaces were hidden beneath cloth. Metal trays, glass frames, polished decorations, everything. The old man sat silently for several moments. Then he spoke. When Bloody Mary notices someone, she begins with reflections. What happens after that? His expression darkened. At first, your reflection changes. Then, it begins moving without you. A chill crawled down my spine. And after that, Hector looked away. Eventually, your reflection stops being yours. What do you mean? The old man's voice barely rose above a whisper. She replaces it. Thunder rumbled outside. The room suddenly felt colder. Hector reached into an old wooden chest. Inside was a leather journal, ancient, covered with dust. He handed it to me carefully. This belonged to Father Esteban. Who was he? The last priest of the monastery. I opened the journal. Most pages were faded. Many were stained with dark brown marks that looked disturbingly like dried blood. The final entries were still readable. The handwriting grew increasingly frantic. The last entry read, "The mirror is not an object. It is a doorway. The woman calls herself Mary, but she is far older than any human name. Every soul she takes becomes part of the reflection world. If the barrier breaks, she will cross completely." The next page contained only 3 words, written repeatedly, hundreds of times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. The writing became more chaotic with each line. Eventually it transformed into meaningless scratches, as if the priest had lost his mind while writing. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking. That evening I returned to my hotel. I wanted to leave the village immediately. I packed everything: camera, laptop, clothes, equipment. By sunrise I planned to be gone forever. But Bloody Mary had other plans. At 8 p.m., the electricity failed again. The village plunged into darkness. Candles glowed behind distant windows. Fog rolled through the streets, thicker than ever before. The mountains vanished completely. Then the screams started. One house, then another, then another. Panic spread across the village. People ran into the streets carrying lanterns, shouting, praying, crying. I followed the crowd. A family stood outside their home in terror. The father pointed toward a bedroom window. His hands shook violently. She's inside. Nobody dared enter. Nobody. Finally, several villagers forced themselves through the front door. I followed behind them. The bedroom smelled strange, like wet earth and decay. And there, standing against the wall, was a mirror. A young girl sat frozen on her bed, unable to speak, unable to move. Tears streamed down her face. Everyone stared at the mirror. And then I understood why. The reflection wasn't copying reality. The room inside the mirror was different, darker, older, rotting, and standing behind the reflected girl was a woman. A pale woman with long black hair. Her mouth stretched impossibly wide. Her white eyes stared directly at us. The actual room was empty, but inside the reflection, the woman stood there, smiling, watching, waiting. Several villagers began praying. Others fled the house. The young girl suddenly screamed, a horrifying scream that echoed through the village. She pointed toward the mirror. Everyone looked. The reflected woman had moved closer, much closer, only inches behind the reflected girl now. Yet nothing stood behind the real child. Then the woman slowly raised a finger and pointed directly at me. Not the girl, not the villagers, me. My blood turned to ice. The creature's smile widened. Its jaw cracked, split, opened far beyond human limits, and from deep inside its throat came a whisper heard by everyone in the room. Gonzales. The mirror shattered, exploding outward. Glass filled the air. People screamed. Children cried. The lights returned instantly. The reflected woman disappeared. But the nightmare was only beginning. That night nobody slept. The village remained awake until dawn. Yet the worst discovery came the following morning. 3 villagers had vanished. No footprints, no signs of struggle, no bodies, nothing. Only one thing remained behind. Each missing person had left a mirror in their home, and inside every mirror, people could see faint human silhouettes standing in darkness. Trapped, watching, trying desperately to escape. As fear spread through the village, Hector came to find me. His face was pale, his voice trembled. The seal beneath the monastery is weakening. What seal? The priest trapped her centuries ago. My heart sank. And if it breaks? The old man looked toward the mountains, toward the hidden monastery, toward the black mirror. Then he whispered, if it breaks, Bloody Mary won't need reflections anymore. That night, while lying awake in my hotel room, I heard a familiar sound. Scratch, 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 from the bathroom. Slowly I turned toward the door. The scratching stopped. Then came a voice. Not from inside the bathroom, not from outside the room, but from directly behind me. A cold female whisper, only inches from my ear. Turn around, Gonzales. I did not move. The whisper came again, this time with a laugh. Your reflection already did. End of Part 2. Part 3. The reflection that escaped. The whisper lingered beside my ear. Your reflection already did. I sat frozen on the bed. Every muscle in my body locked in terror. The room was completely silent. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. Yet I could feel a presence standing directly behind me, watching, waiting, smiling. Slowly I reached for my flashlight. My hand shook uncontrollably. The beam snapped on. I spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. The bathroom door remained slightly open. Darkness filled the crack beneath it. I stared for several seconds. Then I heard a faint sound. A giggle, coming from inside the bathroom. I backed toward the hotel room door. The giggle came again, higher, closer, like a child trying not to laugh. Suddenly the bathroom light switched on by itself. The door slowly creaked wider. My flashlight illuminated the mirror, and what I saw nearly stopped my heart. My reflection was standing there, looking directly at me. The problem was, I wasn't standing in front of the mirror. I was several feet away. Yet the reflection remained, smiling, watching, moving independently. Its smile widened. The face was mine, but the eyes weren't. The eyes were completely white, the same eyes I had seen inside the black mirror beneath the monastery. The reflection slowly lifted one hand and waved. I turned and ran. I spent the rest of the night inside Hector's house. The old man listened quietly as I explained everything. His expression became darker with every word. Finally he sighed. It's begun. What has? The replacement. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Hector opened Father Esteban's journal once again. This time he showed me several hidden pages folded together. The pages contained drawings. Terrifying drawings. The first sketch showed a man staring into a mirror. The second showed his reflection smiling differently. The third showed the reflection stepping out of the glass. The fourth showed two identical versions of the same person standing side by side. Only one of them cast a shadow. The final drawing was the worst. The real person lay dead on the floor, while the duplicate walked away smiling. Underneath the drawing, Father Esteban had written, "When she cannot leave the mirror, she sends reflections instead. They learn, they imitate, then they replace." I felt sick. You think my reflection escaped? Hector looked away. I think it is trying to. That afternoon the village descended into chaos. More disappearances, more shattered mirrors, more reports of strange sightings. People claimed to see dead relatives standing inside windows. Others reported hearing voices from reflective surfaces. No one knew what was real anymore. Near sunset, another villager came forward. A farmer named Miguel. He looked terrified. I saw Gonzales. Everyone turned toward me. Miguel shook his head. No, not you. The farmer pointed toward the forest. I saw another Gonzales. Silence filled the room. My blood turned cold. Miguel explained what happened. Earlier that afternoon, he had been returning from his fields. As he crossed an abandoned road near the forest, he noticed someone standing among the trees, watching him, motionless. The figure looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same face, same height. But something was wrong. The smile, the eyes, the way it stood completely still. Miguel had called out. The figure never answered. Instead, it slowly stepped backward into the forest and disappeared. That night, Hector refused to let me leave his house. All doors were locked, all windows covered. Candles burned in every room. Several villagers gathered together for protection. Nobody wanted to be alone. At around midnight, a violent storm struck the mountains. Thunder shook the village. Rain hammered the rooftops. The lights failed once again. Darkness swallowed everything. Then came the knocking. 3 knocks. Tap, 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 at Hector's front door. Everyone froze. The knocking continued. Slow, patient, almost polite. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The knocking came again. Tap, tap, tap. Finally Hector approached the window. Carefully, slowly, he lifted the curtain just enough to see outside. Face instantly lost all color. He stumbled backward, crossing himself repeatedly. "What is it?" someone whispered. Hector couldn't answer. His hands shook too badly. I moved toward the window. Against every instinct, against every warning, against every ounce of common sense. I looked outside, and saw myself, standing in the rain. The figure wore my clothes, my face, my smile. Water streamed down its skin, yet it never blinked, never moved, never looked away. The thing outside slowly raised its hand and pointed toward the house, toward me. Then it mouthed 3 words, words I could somehow hear inside my head. "Let me in." A woman screamed. Several villagers began praying. Others backed away from the windows. The duplicate continued smiling, patient, confident, as if it already knew how this would end. Then every mirror inside Hector's house shattered simultaneously. The explosion echoed like gunfire. Glass rained across the floor. People screamed. Candles extinguished instantly. Darkness swallowed the room. Something moved among us, fast, too fast. I heard footsteps, laughter, whispers, then a terrible scream. The lights returned seconds later. One villager was gone, vanished, without a trace. Only bloody footprints remained, leading directly toward the nearest broken mirror, and ending there, had been dragged into the reflection itself. Panic erupted. People fled into the storm. Some disappeared into the darkness. Others locked themselves inside their homes. The village was falling apart. The next morning I made a decision. The nightmare had started beneath the monastery. That was where it had to end. Hector agreed. The Black Mirror had to be destroyed, or sealed, or somehow stopped, before Bloody Mary crossed over completely. A small group volunteered to help. 6 men from the village, armed with lanterns, ropes, and old hunting rifles. None of us believed bullets would help, but nobody wanted to enter the monastery unarmed. By sunset, we reached the ancient ruins. Fog crawled through the forest, thicker than ever before. The monastery seemed darker, larger, almost alive. As we entered, strange whispers echoed through the halls. Voices called our names from empty rooms. Children laughed behind crumbling walls. Yet whenever we investigated, nothing was there. Eventually we reached the basement staircase, the same staircase leading toward the Black Mirror, the same staircase where everything had begun. As we descended, one of the villagers suddenly stopped. His lantern fell from his hand. The man stared ahead, terrified. "What is it?" I asked. He pointed downward, toward the darkness, toward the chamber below. Far beneath us, dozens of white eyes stared upward, watching, waiting, smiling. The villagers nearly turned back, but then a far worse sound echoed through the staircase. Footsteps, coming from behind us. Slow, heavy, wet. We turned our lanterns upward, and every single person gasped. Standing at the top of the staircase were 6 figures, perfect copies of the 6 villagers who had accompanied us. Identical faces, identical bodies, identical smiles. And among them stood another Gonzales. Its white eyes gleamed in the darkness, its mouth stretched wider than humanly possible. Then all 7 duplicates spoke at the same time. In Bloody Mary's voice, a voice that sounded like thousands of people screaming together. "The door is opening." Deep below us inside the underground chamber, something massive slammed against the other side of the Black Mirror. The entire monastery shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Ancient stones cracked, and for the first time, everyone heard her true scream. A scream so horrifying that several villagers dropped to their knees. covering their ears, begging God for mercy. Because whatever lived inside the black mirror was no longer trying to escape. It was already coming through. Part 4. The Black Mirror opens. The scream that erupted from the depths of the monastery did not sound human. It sounded ancient. Older than language, older than memory. The sound shook the walls and rattled the bones inside our bodies. Several villagers collapsed to their knees. Others covered their ears and cried. Blood trickled from one man's nose. Another began praying uncontrollably. But the scream continued. Came laughter. The 7 duplicates at the top of the staircase smiled wider. Their faces began to change. Skin stretched, eyes widened, necks twisted at impossible angles. The copies were no longer trying to look human. They didn't need to. The duplicate version of me stepped forward. Its white eyes locked onto mine. You should have stayed away, Gonzalez. The voice sounded exactly like mine. That terrified me more than anything. Then the thing's jaw split open. Crack, crack, crack. The mouth extended almost to its ears. Rows of black teeth emerged from the darkness inside its throat. And then all 7 duplicates charged. Chaos exploded across the staircase. Lanterns crashed against stone. Men screamed. Gunshots echoed through the monastery. One villager fired directly into his duplicate's chest. The bullet passed through it, as if the creature was made of smoke. The duplicate grabbed him and dragged him into the darkness. His screams lasted only seconds, then silence. The remaining villagers ran downward, not upward, because the creatures blocked our escape. The only path left was deeper into the monastery, toward the Black Mirror, toward Bloody Mary herself. We rushed down the final stairs. The underground chamber came into view, and every one of us stopped, frozen in disbelief. The Black Mirror had changed. It was no longer 10 feet tall. It had doubled in size. Its surface stretched from floor to ceiling. Black liquid rippled endlessly across it. A living heart. And behind the mirror, something moved. Something enormous. A silhouette larger than any human. Its shape shifted constantly. Sometimes it looked like a woman. Sometimes a spider. Sometimes a mass of twisting arms and faces. Father Esteban's journal had been wrong. Bloody Mary was not trapped inside the mirror. The mirror was trapped around her. The realization hit me like a hammer. The black surface wasn't a doorway. It was a prison wall, and that prison was breaking. A massive crack suddenly appeared across the mirror. The sound echoed through the chamber, like thunder, like a mountain splitting apart. From the crack emerged a pale hand, long fingers, black nails, skin white as bone. The hand slowly gripped the edge of the opening. Then another hand appeared, then another, then another. Dozens of hands reached from the crack, pulling, tearing, widening the opening, as if countless trapped souls were trying to escape. One villager dropped his lantern. The words barely escaped his lips. Faces began emerging from the darkness. Hundreds of faces. Men, women, children, all fused together into a single nightmare. Every face wore the same smile, the same impossible grin. Then the faces started speaking, all at once, thousands of voices overlapping. Help us. Save us. Run. She's coming. Don't let her see you. The chamber filled with madness. Some voices begged. Others laughed. Others screamed endlessly. Then the black mirror exploded outward. Not completely, just enough. Enough for something to crawl through. At first I saw only hair. Long black hair spilling from the crack. Then came a face, or what should have been a face. The creature's skin was deathly pale, its eyes completely white. Its smile stretched far beyond human anatomy. And its neck continued emerging, longer, 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 like a snake unfolding from another world. The thing was enormous, far larger than a human woman, far larger than anything natural. Bloody Mary had arrived. Every lantern flickered. The temperature plummeted. Ice formed across the stone floor. Our breath became visible. The creature slowly pulled itself farther through the opening. Bones cracked, joints twisted, limbs unfolded endlessly, as if her body did not obey normal rules. His rifle, directly at her face. The bullet struck. For a brief moment we felt hope. Then Bloody Mary smiled. The bullet stopped in midair, hung motionless, and dropped harmlessly to the floor. The creature tilted her head, studying the man, almost curiously. Then his reflection appeared on the black mirror behind her. The reflection smiled. The real man didn't. The reflected version reached through the mirror, grabbed the man's shoulders, and pulled. The villager screamed. His body folded backward unnaturally. Bones snapped, muscles tore, and in a horrifying instant, he vanished into the mirror. The scream continued from inside, then stopped. The chamber fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Bloody Mary looked directly at me. For the first time, not through a reflection, not through a dream, directly. The white eyes locked onto mine, and suddenly I saw things. Terrible things. I saw centuries of victims, entire villages disappearing, families dragged into mirrors, children trapped inside reflections forever. I saw priests trying to stop her, witches worshipping her, kings fearing her, empires collapsing around her legend. She was older than the monastery, older than Peru, older than any story that remembered her name. Then I saw something else, a memory, her memory. Long ago, something had opened a doorway between worlds. Something had crossed through. Something that wore the shape of a woman, and humanity had given it a name, Bloody Mary. The vision ended. I collapsed to the floor gasping. Blood streamed from my nose. Bloody Mary smiled wider, as if she knew I had seen the truth. Then she spoke, not aloud, inside every mind in the chamber. The mirrors belong to me. The reflections belong to me. The world will belong to me. The monastery trembled violently. A huge section of ceiling collapsed. Stone blocks crashed to the floor. Dust filled the air. The ancient structure was beginning to fail. Hector grabbed my arm. We have to seal the doorway. How? The old man pointed toward the journal, toward Father Esteban's final notes. The priest had discovered something, a ritual, a desperate last attempt, a way to close the prison, but it required a sacrifice. A living soul had to enter the mirror willingly and lock the doorway from the other side. My stomach turned. Everyone understood immediately. No one volunteered. No one spoke. Then another voice echoed across the chamber. A familiar voice, a voice that made my blood run cold. González. I turned. Standing behind us was my duplicate, the reflection that had escaped. Only now it looked almost completely human. Almost. The thing smiled and held up something in its hand. A photograph. My heart stopped. The picture showed my family back home, my parents, my younger sister, standing outside our house. The duplicate smiled wider. Its white eyes gleamed. And then it whispered, "If the door opens completely, we'll visit them next." I realized this nightmare wasn't confined to the village anymore. The prison was breaking. Bloody Mary was growing stronger. And if she escaped completely, there would be nowhere left to run. End of Part 4. Part 5. Into the Reflection World. The photograph slipped from the duplicate's fingers. It landed at my feet. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The image looked recent. Too recent. My family stood outside our house, smiling at the camera. A picture that should not have existed. Not here. Not in this village. Not in the hands of a creature born from a mirror. The duplicate smiled. "You understand now." Its voice sounded exactly like mine. Distance means nothing to her. A terrible silence filled the underground chamber. The remaining villagers stared at Bloody Mary. The monstrous figure continued emerging from the fractured mirror. Every minute she grew larger, stronger, more real. Hector opened Father Esteban's journal. The old pages shook in his hands. There is only one chance left. I already knew what he meant. The sacrifice. The person who would enter the reflection world. The person who would lock the prison from the other side. The old man looked at me. I looked away. Part of me wanted to refuse, to run, to escape while there was still time. But every time I thought about leaving, I remembered the photograph. I remembered my family. If Bloody Mary escaped completely, she wouldn't stop with San Muerte. She wouldn't stop with Peru. The entire world would become her mirror. The duplicate laughed softly, as if it knew exactly what I was thinking. Suddenly the monastery shook again. A deafening crack echoed through the chamber. The fracture across the black mirror widened. Several massive chunks of stone crashed from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. People screamed. Bloody Mary's upper body was almost completely outside now. Her enormous pale form towered above us. Hundreds of trapped faces writhed beneath her skin, screaming silently, begging for help. The sight nearly drove me insane. Then I made my decision. I'll do it. The words escaped before I could reconsider. Hector closed his eyes. The villagers stared. No one spoke. No one argued. Because everyone understood. There was no other choice. The old man handed me Father Esteban's journal. Inside the final pages was the ritual. Ancient symbols. Prayers written in forgotten languages. Instructions for sealing the doorway. The final sentence stood alone at the bottom of the page. Written in blood. Once the lock is restored, the one who seals it can never return. Duplicate's chest. For the first time, the creature screamed. Black smoke erupted from its body. The duplicate staggered backward. Its skin cracked like broken glass. The villagers attacked. Lanterns, torches, anything they could find. The duplicate shrieked as flames spread across its body. Then it shattered, exploding into thousands of mirror fragments. For one brief moment, hope returned. Then the fragments began moving. The tiny pieces of glass crawled across the floor like insects, reassembling, reforming, building a new body. The duplicate wasn't dead. It couldn't die, not while Bloody Mary remained connected to this world. The chamber erupted into chaos once again, and through it all, Bloody Mary continued crawling from the prison, patient, confident, certain of victory. Hector grabbed my shoulder. Now, I looked toward the black mirror, toward the darkness beyond, toward the reflection world. Everything inside me screamed not to do it. Every instinct begged me to run, but there was no time left. I took a deep breath and jumped. The moment I touched the black surface, reality shattered. Cold. That was the first sensation. An impossible cold. A cold deeper than winter, deeper than death. Then came darkness. Endless darkness. For several seconds I fell through nothingness. No sound, no light, no ground. Then I landed. I opened my eyes, and immediately wished I hadn't. The reflection world stretched endlessly in every direction. A twisted copy of reality. The sky was black. The mountains hung upside down above me. Rivers flowed through the air. Buildings floated like broken dreams. Nothing obeyed normal laws. And everywhere, there were mirrors, millions of them, covering the landscape, standing in forests, floating in the sky, growing from the ground like trees. Each mirror contained faces, countless faces. Some cried, some screamed, some simply stared. The trapped souls, Bloody Mary's victims. Centuries of them. I felt sick. Then I noticed movement. A young woman emerged from one of the mirrors. Unlike Bloody Mary, she looked human. Pale, exhausted, terrified. "You're alive?" I asked. The woman nodded slowly. "Not exactly." Her voice sounded distant, like an echo. "I was taken in 1891. My blood froze. The woman continued walking toward me. "There are thousands of us here." She gestured toward the endless landscape. "Maybe millions. Can you escape?" The woman laughed sadly. "No one escapes." Behind her, more figures emerged. Men, women, children, people from different centuries, different countries, different eras, all trapped, all forgotten. One old man stepped forward. "I remember when she took my village." Another spoke. "I remember Rome." A third whispered, "I remember the Black Death." The realization hit me like a hammer. Some of these souls had been imprisoned for hundreds of years. Others, for thousands. Bloody Mary's reach extended far beyond any legend, far beyond any story. Suddenly the ground trembled. Every trapped soul looked upward. Fear filled their faces. "What is it?" I asked. Nobody answered. The trembling grew stronger. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Massive footsteps. Something enormous moved through the darkness beyond the mirrors. Something far larger than Bloody Mary's physical form. The trapped souls began running. Panic spread instantly. "Hide!" someone screamed. "She's coming!" The black sky cracked open, and through that impossible wound in reality, I finally saw Bloody Mary's true form. The creature that existed beyond the prison, beyond the legend, beyond the woman-shaped monster trying to enter our world. What I saw was so vast that my mind struggled to comprehend it. A colossal mass of eyes, faces, arms, teeth, and mirrors, an entity stretching across the horizon itself, as if an entire nightmare had become alive. Thousands of white eyes opened simultaneously, and every single one turned toward me. Then a voice echoed across the reflection world, a voice larger than thunder, larger than mountains, larger than reality itself. "Gonzales." The mirrors around me shattered. The sky split apart. The trapped souls screamed. And I realized something horrifying. Bloody Mary had known I would come. She had been waiting. The sacrifice, the ritual, the prison. It was all part of her plan. And now, I was exactly where she wanted me to be. Part 6. The Last Reflection. The sky of the reflection world continued to crack apart. Endless fractures spread across the darkness above. Each crack revealed thousands of white eyes staring down at me, watching, waiting, hungry. The trapped souls ran in every direction. Their screams echoed through the endless landscape of mirrors. Some disappeared into shattered buildings. Others vanished into forests made entirely of glass. Nobody wanted to remain exposed. Nobody wanted Bloody Mary to see them. But she had already seen me. The colossal entity stretched across the horizon. A nightmare so vast that my mind could barely understand its shape. Millions of faces writhed across her body. Millions of trapped souls, victims from forgotten centuries. Entire generations consumed by the mirror world. Then the giant eyes blinked, all at once. And suddenly she was standing in front of me. Not the enormous cosmic horror, not the monstrous giant, just a woman. Pale skin, long black hair, white eyes, an impossibly wide smile. Bloody Mary. She stood only a few feet away, yet I could still feel her true form looming behind reality itself. The creature tilted her head. studying me, like a scientist examining an insect. Then she spoke, for the first time directly. "You are different." Her voice sounded strangely calm, soft, almost human. I said nothing. The smile widened. "Most people run." The air around us felt wrong, unnatural. Every mirror nearby trembled as she spoke. "You came willingly." I tightened my grip on Father Esteban's journal. The pages fluttered in the cold wind. "You destroyed villages." I forced the words out. "You trapped millions." Bloody Mary laughed. The sound echoed across the horizon. "You still believe this story is about good and evil?" Suddenly, she touched my forehead. The world vanished. I saw another time, another age, a place older than civilization itself. There were no cities, no countries, no names. Only primitive humans gathered around fires. And among them stood a doorway. A black doorway. Exactly like the mirror. People approached it. Curious. Fearful. Then something emerged. Not Bloody Mary. Not yet. A beautiful woman. Kind eyes. Gentle smile. The humans welcomed her. Trusted her. Loved her. Years passed. Then centuries. The woman taught them things, knowledge, secrets, dreams, and slowly she changed. The smiles became wider, the eyes became paler, the knowledge became darker. People began disappearing, families vanished, entire tribes were consumed. The woman was never human. She had only worn a human shape. The vision shifted again. Now I saw ancient priests, across different civilizations. Different eras, different continents. Enemies united by one purpose: stopping her. Together they built the prison, the black mirror, the reflection world, the seal. And they trapped her. But not completely. The vision ended. I staggered backward. Bloody Mary watched quietly. "You see now." The creature smiled sadly, for the first time. "I did not enter your world." The white eyes locked onto mine. "Your world entered mine." The statement chilled me more than any scream. For a moment I understood. Humanity had always been connected to the reflection world. Mirrors weren't windows into another realm. They were fragments of it, tiny pieces left behind. Bloody Mary was not haunting humanity. Humanity was living beside her prison. The realization nearly broke my mind. Then I remembered something. Something from Father Esteban's journal. A hidden note written beside the ritual. A sentence I hadn't understood before. "The prison cannot be strengthened from within. It must be replaced." My heart stopped. Replaced. Not repaired. Not sealed. Replaced. Suddenly everything made sense. Every sacrifice, every guardian, every century. The prison needed a keeper, a living consciousness, someone to stand watch from inside, someone to become part of the seal itself. Bloody Mary's smile widened. "You finally understand." The monster already knew. She had always known. The ritual wasn't designed to destroy her. It was designed to create a new jailer. And now the prison had chosen me. The sky cracked again. Far away I saw the real world. The monastery. Hector. The surviving villagers. Bloody Mary's physical body was still emerging, still breaking through. Time was running out. The creature stepped closer. "You can leave." I stared at her. The offer shocked me. Bloody Mary pointed toward a glowing mirror in the distance. A doorway home. The smile became wider. "Save yourself." Then she gestured toward the collapsing prison. "Or stay." The monster's eyes gleamed. "And become the next guardian." I understood immediately. If I left, I would survive. I would see my family again. My life would continue. But eventually the prison would fail. maybe in months, maybe years, maybe decades. Bloody Mary would finally escape completely. The world would belong to her. I thought about my parents, my sister, the village, the trapped souls surrounding me. Millions of victims, waiting, watching, hoping. The decision hurt more than anything I had ever experienced. But deep down, I already knew my answer. I closed the journal and stepped away from the doorway home, toward the heart of the prison, toward the endless darkness. The trapped souls fell silent. Bloody Mary stared at me. For the first time, the monster looked surprised. I stopped before the ancient seal, a gigantic black mirror suspended above an abyss. The journal opened by itself. The final ritual appeared, glowing with pale light. I began reading. The words were ancient, older than any language I knew. Yet somehow I understood them. The prison trembled. The sky shook. Reality screamed. Bloody Mary's physical body began dissolving in the real world. Pulled backward, dragged toward the mirror once more. The creature roared, for the first time, not in anger, in fear. The ritual was working. The seal recognized its new guardian. A vortex of black light surrounded me. I felt my body becoming weightless, transparent, part of something larger. The reflection world itself. The prison was merging with me. Every trapped soul glowed. Chains shattered. Mirrors broke. Thousands, millions, countless victims began disappearing. Finally freed. Finally at peace. Bloody Mary screamed. The sound shook both worlds. The gigantic cosmic form collapsed inward, pulled back into the abyss, back into the prison, back into darkness. The last thing she saw was me, standing at the center of the seal. And for the first time, in thousands of years, her smile vanished. Then everything went black. Epilogue. Years later, the village of San Muerte still exists. The monastery remains abandoned. The Black Mirror is gone. No one knows where it disappeared. Hector never spoke publicly about what happened. Neither did the survivors. The disappearances stopped. The hauntings ended. The nightmares faded. But some stories remain. Travelers occasionally report seeing a strange mirror deep within the northern Peruvian cloud forest. A mirror that shouldn't exist. A mirror that appears only during heavy fog. And if someone looks closely, they sometimes see a man standing inside. A man watching silently, guarding something, protecting something. A man named Gonzales A., the new keeper of the reflection world, the final guardian of Bloody Mary's prison. And every so often, when the fog is thick and the night is dark, a faint message appears across the mirror's surface. She is still here.